Hello, I'm Liz Van Vliet, and welcome to the Assist with Impact podcast. Join me as I explore the competencies and capabilities that allow you to assist with impact. I'll be sharing practical tips, strategies, and insights that will help you move beyond what I call the order taker zone and be that little hinge that can swing big doors. If you're ready to be more proactive and have more impact in your role, then this is the place for you. Let's get started with the episode.
Well, hello, lovely listeners. Welcome to episode 171 of the Assist with Impact podcast. And if you are paying attention, which I know many of you are, you will have noticed that this episode is dropping very quickly after the previous episode. And there is a reason for that. That is because episode 170 about my 3 Ps for managing your manager, excuse me, was actually meant to come out 2 weeks ago. But I inadvertently put the wrong date in the scheduling app, my podcast app. So I'm so sorry. I know I tell you not to say sorry, but there are times where sorry is absolutely the right word. And in this case, it is. So I'm very apologetic that I was in there as I was planning this episode and suddenly saw that my episode was still sitting in there scheduled. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is why I was a terrible EA. And in actual fact, I really need an assistant of my own because left to my own devices, I do not know how I get anything done. Anyway, I'm recording this episode from my sickbed, literally from my sickbed. So I apologise for the quality of the audio and I apologise for my sound, for my croaky voice, because I'm currently laid up in bed with my 3rd dose of COVID. Since the COVID pandemic begun, I have had, this is now my 3rd bout, and yes, I apologise, that's my phone beeping in the background with a notification, but yes, I'm currently laid up in bed, but I wanted to get this episode out because, yes, I wanted to just go ahead and record my episode for the week, for this fortnight, even though my other episode has just landed in your feed. So, with no further ado, let me get on with what this episode is all about. So, this is a little bit of Liz on her soapbox, Liz putting her ranty pants on. And I'm going to just apologise for those of you that are listening to this thinking, uh-oh, Liz has got her ranty pants on. If you don't know what ranty pants are, means it's when Liz gets on her soapbox. Yes, when Liz has something to say and she wants to say it. So as I was planning this episode out, I've called it When Being Just an Assistant Isn't Actually Enough. What do I mean by that? So on the one hand, I and so many other people in this, space of trying to support you as an admin professional, as an assistant in whatever capacity that is that you operate in. We're constantly telling you that you are more than just an assistant. But at the moment, whenever I'm on social media, it feels like there is a push for a lot of those people to be encouraging you as assistants to aspire to be more than just an assistant. What is that all about? What is that all about? So, My position, just in case you're in any way confused, is that you are valuable and you are of value as an assistant, whether that is a team assistant, a receptionist, an operations manager, an executive assistant, a personal assistant, a marketing assistant, whatever your title is, you are valuable and of value as an assistant. Secondly, you can expand the boundaries of your role as an assistant in that capacity that you occupy, that you fulfill as an assistant. I saw a poll done by Ruth Kyler, who I had on recently on the podcast, and Ruth asked her followers to tell her what is one of the, tell her from a few things that she offered them as choices, what is the reason why you don't get any career coaching? What is one of the reasons? And the 70% of the responses that she received were because they feel they have nowhere to go as an assistant. So that speaks to this idea that you are constrained as an assistant, that if you are just an assistant, that you've got nowhere to go. And so I want to challenge that. And then thirdly, I want you to understand that my position is that you are not your job and you are not tied to the manager or managers or the leaders that you support. So that's why I encourage you to get clear on your value and understand and be able to articulate the contributions that you're making, to get clear on your values, on what's important to you. What is important to you? And that's why I encourage you, thirdly, to build your confidence and your competence. So I'm frustrated that you're getting these mixed messages, that you're being told to believe in yourself and see yourself as more than just an assistant. And I apologise, there's someone doing building works outside, so if you're getting this noise, I'm so sorry. But then you're being sold on the idea that in order for you to be, ambitious and successful, that you need to get on board with aspiring to a career path beyond being an assistant. I feel that's really unfair to you. When I set up my business, I did so because I did the role and I saw how starved assistants were for training and coaching that met them where they were, that met you where you were as assistants, as that meat in the sandwich. Yes, there are those of you that will leverage your time as an assistant to springboard into a different career. Maybe that will be in event management or project management or marketing or human resources. I've seen assistants do this. But there will be those of you that will be seeking growth opportunities and fulfillment within the role. And that is possible too, by changing managers, by changing organisations, by looking for stretch assignments, by taking on volunteer roles. God forbid I tell you to take on a volunteer role when you're already overwhelmed and underpaid. I'm not that person. Don't get me wrong. It's not right for everyone. So I use the same analogy for the assistant role that I use to describe friendships. You know, I've got 3 daughters, and I tell them this about friendships, that we have friendships for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And it's the same with the assistant role and being an assistant. So I am an example of someone who was an assistant for a reason. It was due to circumstances. It was because I was, coming out the other side of my aggressive breast cancer treatment. I was feeling that I needed to take on a role. I wanted to get back into the workforce. I wanted to do something that I felt was doable, in air quotes. And I deluded myself into thinking that being an assistant was all care and no responsibility. How wrong was I? I learnt that very quickly. But that's an example of how we can become an assistant because of circumstances. And there will be many of you, and I've interviewed assistants that have become an assistant for reasons, for circumstances, and stayed in the role for a time because of those reasons, and then moved on to something else. Then there are assistants who are assistants for a season during a time of their life. So that might be while you were travelling. So there's many assistants that head off overseas. If we're talking about Australian travellers who who've headed off overseas and maybe gone over to the UK, for example, and, become assistants while they were travelling so that they could do the role of an assistant and then go travelling around Europe. For whatever reason, so reason and season for a time of your life, it works for you to be an assistant. And then there are those of you that it is for a lifetime. You are a professional assistant. You do not aspire to be anything other than a professional assistant. And you consider that to be something that is your professional role as an assistant for your career lifetime. Fantastic. I'm so proud to know so many of those assistants. So what I'm not about is you being attracted to the bright, shiny objects that are out there for you to spend money on when you are feeling a lack of direction around your role as an assistant, or that are setting you up with false promises for what is possible for you as an assistant. And if you follow me on social media, you will know that I am very, very, I'm not afraid to state my opinion around the fact that as an assistant, as a profession that is not well paid, I do not want to see assistants having people out there taking your money on, courses and programs that are making big promises to you with not a lot of substantiation. At the moment, there is, some stuff out there. There's a lot of noise, I feel, about the Chief of Staff role. So I just want to share with you some research around the Chief of Staff role from Boston Consulting Group. So Boston Consulting Group published a fantastic article that I'll link to in the show notes called The Heart of CEO Effectiveness, where they talk about the office of the CEO and the combination, the way the EA and the Chief of Staff can work in partnership as the heart of the CEO effectiveness. they say about the Chief of Staff role. Many companies have a CEO, Chief of Staff, but what that role entails can vary based on the company's context. The Chief of Staff is frequently a senior position, generally holding a title of Vice President or higher. The larger the company, the higher the position in the hierarchy. At companies we surveyed that had at least $2 billion in revenues, 45% of chiefs of staff were a senior vice president or higher, compared with just 33% in smaller companies. At about 80% of companies we surveyed, the chief of staff did not hold another position. In the remaining companies, the chief of staff most likely second title is Head of Business Development, Chief Strategy Officer, or Chief Transformation Officer. Smaller companies tended to recruit chiefs of staff from operations and business services, while larger companies were more likely to pull from the finance department or professional services like consulting, or promote a senior executive assistant. So, in the global skills matrix, which you have heard me talk about previously on the podcast, which is the document published by the World Administrator Alliance, the WA Alliance, the Chief of Staff role is the pinnacle of the skills matrix. It's the level 5 role. It's a leadership role. The bottom line is it's only realistic for a select few. Now, I'm going along in a couple of weeks' time to an event that's being run here in Sydney by an organisation to bring together some chiefs of staff from some tech companies and an organisation called the Chief of Staff Association, because I'm interested in hearing about their program and the experience of these chief of staff. I'm very interested in the experience of these chiefs of staff, but I'm wanting to make sure that you as assistants, my lovely listeners, are realistic about the fact that the Chief of Staff role is not a role that is realistic for everyone. It is only realistic for a very select few EAs who have done and followed a really quite specific career trajectory and undertaken specific roles and gained experience that makes them suitable candidates. There is opportunity for you to build your experience to make that a viable prospect for you. I want you to believe that that is something you can do, but I do not want you to be deluded into thinking that you can spend hard-earned money or ask for money from your training and development budget in your organisation without actually doing your due diligence and understanding what commitments these organisations are going to give you to support you in your development. So, I want to finish this off by saying that the contribution you're making is important. You are more than just an assistant because you have the capacity to be a valuable contributor for your manager, for your team, and for your organisation. And that is what I want you to be focused on. If you can't be a valued and a valuable contributor for that manager or managers, for that team and that organisation, then it's time to start looking to move. And to do that takes preparation and planning. And if that's your problem, and if you're feeling that, oh, Liz, I can't do that on my own, well, that's where I can support you. And I've got something that I'm working on. And in order for you to be the first to hear about it, Well, you need to be subscribed to my email list. So if you aren't already, please make sure that you've gone to myeacareer.com and signed up. And if you have trouble doing that, send me an email at liz@myeacareer.com and ask me to put you on my mailing list. But please know, to finish this off, that I am in your corner. I am there for you, and I don't ask anything more of you than to recognise that you are more than just an assistant. And it doesn't take you spending money, thousands of dollars, on anything that you don't see value in helping you expand the boundaries of your role and be in an environment where you are valued and where you can be of value. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to today's show. I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to see the show notes, head over to my website. It would be great if you haven't already done so. If you enjoyed the show, if you could kindly go to iTunes and leave a review. It helps other people find the show. Thanks for listening and have a great week.